The 10 most surprising powers of the Pope you didn't know about. Number 10. He can absolve very serious sins that not even bishops can forgive. In the Catholic Church, the sacrament of confession allows the faithful to receive forgiveness of their sins through absolution granted by a priest. However, there are certain sins considered so grave that their absolution is reserved exclusively to the apostolic, that is, the Pope. These sins include, for example, the desecration of the Eucharist, physical violence against the Pope, and the absolution of an accomplice in sin against the Sixth Commandment. Under normal circumstances, not even bishops have the power to absolve these sins without special authorization from the Pope. During the Year of Mercy in 2015, Pope Francis granted certain priests, called missionaries of mercy, the power to absolve these reserved sins, highlighting the importance of divine mercy. However, this concession was temporary and specific to that Jubilee year. Currently, the authority to absolve these sins remains the exclusive prerogative of the Pope, underscoring his role as supreme pastor and judge in the Church. This power reflects the hierarchical structure and centrality of the papacy in the administration of the sacraments and ecclesiastical discipline. Number 9. He can modify canon law with a signature. One of the most formidable and least known powers the Pope possesses is the power to modify the code of canon law, the body of law that regulates all aspects of ecclesiastical life in the Catholic Church. This set of norms covers everything from the administration of the sacraments to the hierarchical structure, internal judicial procedures, ecclesiastical penalties, and the organization of dioceses worldwide. While in other legal systems, any change requires parliamentary deliberation, votes, or complex processes, the Pope can reform, correct, or repeal canon laws with a single signature through the promulgation of an apostolic constitution, a motu proprio, or a decree. He does not need the consent of any other authority. His legislative power is supreme and direct, a reflection of his authority as successor of Peter and visible head of the universal Church. This power has been exercised frequently throughout history. In 1983, Pope John Paul II promulgated the current Code of Canon Law, replacing the 1917 Code, and in 1990 he did the same with the Code for the Eastern Churches. More recently, Pope Francis has issued several reforms through his motu proprios, including a review of the marriage annulment process, changes to the structure of the Roman dicasteries, and reforms allowing lay people to hold governing positions within the Vatican. Each of these documents, although seemingly technical, has immediate and global effects, and no other earthly power can intervene in their implementation. This capacity underscores the Pope's unique role as supreme legislator within an institution that, while spiritual in scope, possesses one of the most complex and stable legal frameworks in the world. Number 8. He can canonize saints by direct personal decision. Canonization is the solemn act by which the Pope declares that a deceased person lived the Christian virtues to a heroic degree and enjoys the beatific vision in heaven, officially elevating them to the altars as a model of faith for the entire Church. Throughout history, this process has become increasingly rigorous, involving theological studies, historical research, medical examinations, and consultations with the Congregation for the Causes of Saints. However, what many do not know is that, despite all this procedure, the Pope is not legally bound to follow any of its stages. As the highest authority in the Church, he has the absolute power to canonize someone by personal decision, without the need for proven miracles or prior processes. This power, although rare, exists and is legally valid, since canonization is an ex cathedra act, infallible according to Catholic doctrine. A famous example of this direct exercise of papal power was the canonization of St. Peter Faber, one of the first companions of St. Ignatius of Loyola. Pope Francis proclaimed him a saint without following the traditional process, using the formula of equivalent canonization, that is, recognizing his sanctity based on uninterrupted cult and tradition of veneration. Through this procedure, the Pope can act without consulting the College of Cardinals or requiring medical opinions, only his pastoral and doctrinal judgment. This power makes the Pope the only human being on earth with the authority to infallibly declare that another soul enjoys eternal glory. In doing so, he inscribes his name forever in the liturgical calendar, grants universal public worship, and establishes his example as a moral guide for millions of faithful around the world. Number 7. He can appoint cardinals in secret, in pectore. One of the Pope's most enigmatic powers is his ability to appoint cardinals in secret, a practice known by the Latin expression in pectore, which literally means in the chest or in the heart. This type of appointment, hidden from the public and from the College of Cardinals itself, allows the pontiff to designate a bishop, priest, or even a layperson as a cardinal, without revealing their identity or publicizing their elevation. The reason for this secrecy may be political circumstances, religious persecution, or the need to protect the life and mission of the person in question. The name of the cardinal in pectore is kept in the Pope's heart, and only he can make it public. If the Pope dies without revealing it, the appointment is cancelled and never takes canonical effect. This prerogative, reserved exclusively for the Pope, lends an almost mysterious dimension to the papal power to create princes of the Church. This type of appointment has been used on several occasions over the centuries, especially in contexts where the Church has faced hostile regimes. St. John Paul II, for example, appointed several cardinals in pectore from communist countries, where public recognition of their cardinal dignity would have meant persecution, imprisonment, or even death. One of the most famous cases was that of Cardinal Ignatius Kongpin Mei, Bishop of Shanghai, who was appointed in pectore in 1979 and whose identity was revealed only in 1991 after having already spent more than a decade in prison. This power demonstrates not only the spiritual dimension of the papacy, but also its strategic and geopolitical reach. The Pope, as universal pastor, acts with prudence and long-term vision, protecting his collaborators even in silence, with the authority conferred upon him by his role as head of the Catholic Church worldwide. Number 6. It can change the liturgical calendar of the entire Church. The liturgical calendar is the backbone of spiritual time in the Catholic Church. It marks the solemnities, the important seasons such as Advent and Lent, the feasts of the saints, and the biblical readings proclaimed day after day in every church in the world. Few people know that the only person with the authority to completely modify this calendar is the Pope. This power allows him to alter the order of celebrations, institute new solemnities, move old feasts, or suppress commemorations he no longer considers appropriate. He does not need to convene a council or submit it to a vote. His personal decision, expressed through an apostolic constitution or a motu proprio, is sufficient for the change to have a global effect. This is a power that unites the spiritual dimension with a far-reaching liturgical and pastoral projection. One of the most transcendental examples of this power was the reform of the liturgical calendar implemented by Pope Paul VI after the Second Vatican Council. Through the document Mysterii Paschalis, 1969, the categories of celebrations were redefined, a new universal calendar of saints was established, and the cycle of Sunday and weekday biblical readings was reorganized, changes that radically transformed the experience of faith for millions of Catholics. In recent times, Pope Francis has introduced new celebrations, such as the Memorial of Mary, Mother of the Church, on the Monday after Pentecost. This power not only reflects his authority as a liturgical legislator, but also allows him to guide the spirituality of God's people, setting the pulse of the church year and shaping the face of Catholic prayer in every corner of the planet. No other religious leader in the world possesses such control over the sacred time of a global community. Number 5. He has full power over all the bishops of the world. In the hierarchical structure of the Catholic Church, each bishop is the legitimate pastor of his diocese, with the authority to govern, teach, and sanctify within his territory. However, all bishops are subject in communion and obedience to the Pope, who holds supreme, full, immediate, and universal power over the entire Church, including the bishops themselves. This authority is not merely symbolic or merely spiritual. It is a real and operational power, allowing him to intervene directly in any diocese in the world, remove bishops, modify episcopal decisions, and issue binding norms in doctrinal, disciplinary, or pastoral matters. This principle, dogmatically defined by the First Vatican Council, enshrines the Pope as the highest authority of government, whose judgment cannot be appealed to any other human authority within the Church. The exercise of this power manifests itself at various levels, from the confirmation of new bishops to the creation, merger, or suppression of dioceses, from the convening of synods to the direct appointment of bishops in strategic or high-risk pastoral areas. The Pope has the power to impose apostolic visitations, formal inspections, in any diocese or religious congregation, even against the will of its local bishop. He can also accept or reject the resignations of prelates and, in exceptional cases, dismiss them directly for serious reasons. This power is not exercised authoritarian ly, but as an expression of his mission to guarantee unity, orthodoxy, and communion throughout the Church. Ultimately, the Pope is not simply the Bishop of Rome. He is the universal pastor to whom all pastors must be accountable as successor of the Apostle Peter and supreme guarantor of the faith. Number 4. He can grant plenary indulgences with a single prayer. One of the most powerful and often misunderstood powers of the Pope is the ability to grant plenary indulgences, spiritual benefits that, according to Catholic doctrine, remit the remaining temporal punishment for sins already forgiven in confession. These indulgences do not remove the guilt, which is only erased by the sacrament of forgiveness, but they do erase all accumulated spiritual debt, freeing the soul from the need for atonement in purgatory. While obtaining a plenary indulgence is usually subject to strict conditions: confession, communion, prayer for the Pope, and complete absence of attachment to sin, the Pope has the power to grant them immediately, comprehensively, and without the faithful meeting complex requirements, through a single gesture, a public prayer, or a solemn decree. This power has been exercised at key moments in history, such as during Jubilee years, universal celebrations, apostolic visits, and global catastrophes. For example, during the COVID-19 pandemic, Pope Francis granted plenary indulgences to the sick faithful, healthcare professionals, and those who prayed for them, without the need for immediate confession. He has done the same during special prayer vigils for peace or in extraordinary papal blessings, such as the famous Urbi et Orbi. This prerogative not only underscores the Pope's role as supreme steward of the Church's spiritual treasures, but also directly links him to the economy of grace, extending the fruits of Christ's sacrifice through his unique intercession. No other figure in the Church has this authority. Only the Pope can open wide the gates of heaven with a word, in the name of the one he represents on earth. Number 3. He has his own diplomatic service with international status. Unlike any other religious leader in the world, the Pope is not only the spiritual leader of the Catholic Church, but also the head of state of the Vatican, which grants him full sovereignty and international recognition. This dual status grants him the exclusive right to maintain diplomatic relations with other countries through his own body, the diplomatic service of the Holy See. This body, made up of apostolic nuncios and papal delegates, is present in more than 180 nations, acting as a first-class diplomatic network, with the same status as state embassies. Each nuncio, equivalent to an ambassador, directly represents the Pope, not the Vatican state, and their mission is not only political, but also pastoral, making this diplomatic body unique. The Holy See is recognized as a subject of international law, which allows it to sign treaties, intervene in multilateral forums such as the UN, and mediate international conflicts. In fact, popes have played a pivotal role in high-stakes historical moments, such as John Paul II's mediation between Argentina and Chile in 1978, which averted a war, or the many calls for peace issued by Pope Francis in the face of conflicts in Ukraine, Syria, and the Holy Land. Furthermore, the Vatican has a pontifical ecclesiastical academy, founded in 1701, where future papal diplomats are trained. This diplomatic network allows the Pope to exercise a kind of soft power that transcends politics, promoting interreligious dialogue, religious freedom, peace, and human rights. In a divided world, the Pope not only speaks for the Church, he speaks with moral authority to the nations. Number 2. He can perform exorcisms as a priest and as a pontiff. The Pope, before becoming Supreme Pontiff, is first and foremost an ordained priest, with the power to celebrate the sacraments and exercise pastoral functions. But what many are unaware of is that, in addition to this basic ministerial capacity, he possesses the supreme authority to perform exorcisms both as a priest and in his capacity as Vicar of Christ. According to the exorcism ritual in force in the Catholic Church, every priest needs explicit permission from his bishop to perform a major exorcism. However, the Pope does not need such authorization, nor does he request it. He is the ultimate source of that power, as the successor of Peter and visible head of the universal church. In this sense, the pontiff represents the highest figure with the power not only to approve rights, but also to directly confront, if he so desires, the attacks of evil. Throughout modern history, there have been documented instances in which pontiffs have been implicated, directly or indirectly, in situations involving demonic possession. St. John Paul II performed an exorcism at the Vatican in 1982 in the presence of witnesses when a young woman was brought before him in a private audience. The Pope himself prayed, laid his hands on her, and invoked God's protection until the young woman calmed down. Pope Francis, for his part, has spoken openly about the devil on multiple occasions and has reportedly prayed silently over a possessed man after a public audience, a gesture many interpreted as a spontaneous exorcism. This power is not merely symbolic. In the context of the Catholic faith, the Pope has full authority to confront evil in all its forms. His word, his blessing, and his prayer are not merely devotional acts. They are, in extreme cases, real instruments of spiritual liberation. Number 1. He can resign, but no one can ever judge him. Among all the powers the Pope wields, there is one that combines supreme authority with absolute canonical mystery, the ability to freely resign his office. According to Canon 332, Section 2 of the Code of Canon Law, the Roman Pontiff may resign, provided he does so freely and duly manifests himself, without the need for anyone to approve, accept, or validate his decision. His resignation does not require confirmation from any superior, because the Pope has no human superior. He is not answerable to councils, synods, or tribunals. This prerogative was put into practice in a historic and unprecedented way in the modern era by Benedict XVI in 2013, who, declaring himself powerless to continue, vacated the See of Peter by his own decision, something that had not occurred since the 15th century. The Pope's resignation is an act of absolute government that cannot be revoked, suspended, or challenged by anyone. But there is an even more surprising aspect. Once validly elected, no pope can be judged by any person or institution on earth, no matter how serious his actions. This absolute immunity is not only legal, but also theological. It is grounded in the doctrine that the Pope is the vicar of Christ, the visible head of the Church. Although he can resign, no one can forcibly remove him or subject him to trial. Only God can judge the Pope. This principle was reinforced by the First Vatican Council and remains one of the most striking features of the papacy. At the apex of the Church, the Pope finds himself in an unparalleled juridical solitude. He can abdicate the highest power in Christendom by free choice, but he will never be forced to do so, nor can he be condemned by any tribunal. His authority comes from on high, and he answers only to on high.
Thank you for watching our video. Subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Give it a like, comment your thoughts, and share this video with your friends and family.